Hi. So I'm Isaac. He said stuff about me. Most of this talk is just gonna be me reading out this picture book that I've been working on for a while. But I just want to start out by kind of talking about what led up to that and why I think it's important. So basically, the first thing I want to talk about is just the web. The web is like different than most creative ecosystems because it is kind of larger than a single experience. When you go on the web and you look at a website or something like that, the end of that specific experience is typically not the entire experience. So I just want to start by showing you guys this really delightful website called isitchristmas.com. It is not Christmas, and it will say this every single day until it is Christmas, and then it says yes. And this is kind of, to me, like very indicative of the web and like what the web can do is like it has the ability to make these like very, very short experiences, and people move through the web at a much quicker pace. But it's also really cool because it means that there is some ability for the experience itself to change. So in the demo scene, like we make a demo, and it never changes from one person watching it to another person watching to another person watching it, aside from it crashing because of specific video cards. But on the web, there's a lot more dynamic nature and evolution of each experience itself. So that's just kind of an intro. And basically, I want to talk about how can we take the things that we do in the demo scene and kind of begin to widen the possibility space. Because right now, if you think about a demo scene work and you think about the space of all possible values for every single parameter, the actual demo will trace a single line through that space based on time. So it'll move through these different parameters, but it's only a single line, and everybody who goes on a journey through that possibility space will also be moving along that same single line. If you think about games, everybody still is moving along a line through the possibility space, but if you look at the area that all players together traverse through that possibility space, it's more than just a single line. It's a much wider area that they can move through. So this is my site, and basically I've been working on a lot of little toys, and coming from a does this audio work? Let me see. I might have to change this. No, that's there. There we go. So basically, coming from a web background and coming from a place where kind of interaction is dramatically more important than graphics, as you can tell whenever you go on the internet and look at how disgusting it looks. But coming from that perspective, a lot of the questions that I ask is, how do I add interactivity to this? So there's been like a couple conversations that I've had with people on Twitter about demo stuff and about like the value of having something linear and being able to actually craft the path that the user takes through that space, and the ability to expand that path and have people feel like the story that they are experiencing is their own. So I think that there's a value to each side of that. Obviously, being able to say, this is when this cut happens, this is when this cut happens, allows you to play with time and use time as part of the medium, and it allows you to really make sure that people peek around the corner at exactly the right time when the monster's jumping out, rather than making it so that they can jump out and see the monster having a cup of coffee. So like being able to craft and manicure and really like focus the user experience to that single line is a really, really powerful thing. But that being said, I think that one of the most powerful things you can make somebody feel is as though they are making art. I think a lot of people in this world really, really want to make art, but don't do so because screwing up really sucks. Like every single time, like whenever I try to draw, I'll like draw, and then after one time, I'll just quit because I'm horrible at it, and it feels really bad to make bad art. But I think that the most powerful thing we can do is let somebody feel like they are making art without letting them screw it up. So there's certain games that kind of work on doing this. One of my favorite is that just came out is Metamorphobit. So this is a way for kids to learn how letters work. And basically, it's made up of these individual letters and individual vignettes that a user goes in and touches and experiences.
A.
I'll just let this play through real quick.
Antlers. Arch. Amble.
So it's really cool because there's these individual vignettes, and the movement through that single space is pretty much predefined, but the rate at which you go through it, you get a feel like you're the one in charge. So giving people sort of like agency in the way that they experience is really, really important. And so next I'm going to just take you through a few different a few different parts on the spectrum, from like totally free to completely constrained, that I've done. So the first one is a demo that Despite and I did. It's pretty short, don't worry. So in this one, you can see there's this little quote at the end, and there's no actual interactivity, except for the fact that at the end of the experience, you can go up here and you can create and share your own message. And that message will be written in those text letters, and you can define who you send it to. So it's like a very, very, very minimal amount of interactivity. But that alone lets users feel like the message that they're sending or the experience that they're giving to their friend is their own. And I think that the best thing that we can do as creators is make people feel as though the thing we have created is not just ours, but is like a happiness of their own. But that's something that really is only kind of possible, not completely, but for this specifically, that's something that's only really possible when you're on the internet and you're on the web and you're making something that is easily shareable and is easily evolvable and is something that will pass through many hands and change in those different people's hands. Another sort of idea that I've been thinking about and toying about with making demos is actually kind of having two versions, one that you actually go and watch all the way through and one that you can actually play with. So for the invite that I made for this event, we'll look at the one that you can interact with, but there is just a straight all the way through demo, no interaction. But there also is basically the same demo, but you get to, move the camera, you get to play with parameters, and apparently I can't spell sphere. And you actually get to begin toying with the possibility space. The problem with this is that you start making things that get ugly really quickly. And you start making things that stop making sense by giving the user control. It's very difficult to craft a possibility space that is both vast enough that when people experience it and explore it, they feel as though that possibility space is theirs, and limits them from flying out into this possibility space and being like, oh, what's that pretty thing? And it turns out it's a black hole, and then they hate you and hate everything you've ever made. So it's really important to be extremely conscious of how you are defining that possibility space. And obviously, choosing to just limit it completely to only what you are choosing allows for you to concentrate more on what most of us are interested, which is graphics. But just the ability to kind of give it a bit more space and make it so that people can start moving their own way is a really interesting thing that I think we should be thinking about. So that one is more so a pretty limited trajectory in a slightly wider possibility space, but the dimensions are very well defined. With this next one, I would say it's more along the lines of a toy, where it's a very small object, and there's no way to get too far outside the possibility space because the interactions are so limited. But that being said, it gives somebody the ability to feel like it is somehow theirs, and it gives them more agency. So with this one, all you're doing is spinning this little creature around. You can choose the different songs that you're playing. And it makes it so that nobody can really screw up those colors. Nobody can really screw up the physics. But what they can do is they can actually feel like they get to understand the object that is lying in front of them, because they get to move it and say, okay, when I go like this, it moves like this. And as you get to play with a experience more, you get to understand that experience more. And as you understand an experience more, it's much more possible for you to make that experience yours. And then if somebody goes up here and clicks this, then they can, really, really screw it up as much as they want. But again, it's all about making it so that people can kind of dive into the experience as much as they want to. This is a very similar thing where it's more of a toy than anything else. I think that one thing is really exciting with this is, so it uses the leap, and you have this input, and you just got to play with this object. And so it's crazy because if you think about the actual dimensions of all your fingers, there's a different dimension of freedom for each one of your fingers, and it's defining a quite wide possibility space because there's so many dimensions. But just because it's something that people are used to, and it's something that isn't really, you can't screw up too much, it makes the entire space much more friendly and in many ways more explorable, even though it is much smaller. This next one is definitely one of the wider, at least movement possibility spaces. So this is a music blog that I worked on where each individual track is its own planet, and you can fly from planet to planet, and you can, and each song plays, I'll show you. But there's no direction as to where you're supposed to go. There's no sense of achievement. There's no idea of an end goal. And just giving somebody that wide open space and just say, go play, is a really fun thing to create and a fun thing to explore. But with this one, most of the response that I got is that people actually didn't even explore much. They wouldn't even leave the first place that they're in. Or if they did, they would go and they'd get lost and they'd say, what's the point of this? I don't understand. So it's really hard to find that inherent balance between giving somebody direction and letting them move and play in their own specific way. I think that there's something powerful about letting it be a completely open sandbox, because then even if there are less people who actually dive into and begin to understand like the spacecraft that they're using to explore that possibility space, their emotion and their understanding of that space is going to be so much more rich, because there's nobody like saying like, you do this and then you do this and you do this, and rather they like we're like, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this? And learning in that way leads to like a much deeper understanding of the subject matter. So real quick, let me just fly you around. So basically you just fly up to each of these little things, and then you can move from this place to the outer area. So this is like a specific record label, and you can fly into different songs that will get played here. And then you can go all the way out and move to actually different record labels within LA, and then you can move out to different record labels within the US, and you can go all the way out to the full galaxy, which is, you can see things from Europe and Africa and a bunch of different places. That's kind of the why I'm trying to do this kids book, because with this one, what I wanted to do is limit the narrative possibility space. So there's one actual narrative that gets followed. You move from page to page, but within each page there is some sense of play that ideally a user should be able to understand immediately. One kind of idea that I think about a lot is, if this was shown in a compo and the person doing the controlling was somebody who had never seen it before and it was just the person manning the computer, would it still be a positive experience? Would it still be something where you would understand what the experience was? And I don't know if that's true, but hopefully with this one it's slightly more true. So it runs for about 20 minutes, so just sit back, relax, and let me read you this book. Enough. For my teachers who somehow managed to put up with me, especially the two who had it worst, Mom and Dad. When Manny awoke, he had no idea where he was. He began to move, slowly discovering the physics of his form. The world surrounding Manny was so vast, he could not tell if he even moved. Still, he swam onwards, delighting at the soft swish of his tail, the gentle movement of his spine. As Manny moved into the night around him, he grew more questioning. Where was he? What else was out there? As he moved further and further into the darkness, until the soft seabed where he awoke was just a glimmer in the distance. He thought for a moment of turning back, but the unknown lay before him, and he was excited to discover it. After an eternity of drifting through the ether, Manny discovered a land of crystals. They spewed sparkles into the world around him, and Manny's entire being shimmered with glee. So splendid they stood, stoic yet playful, each with its own voice and melody. Their simple existence filled Manny with wonder. Why were they here? How could they sing? What were they saying? He explored the crystals, dancing with delight through their glistening glitter. How could they be? What could they be? He felt a certain camaraderie with the crystals. The simple fact of their existence made him approach them with reverence. But as Manny wondered, so he wandered, and after he determined the crystals to be thoroughly explored, he moved onwards. After leaving the crystals, Manny swam through the darkness and came upon another beautiful play place. Here he found a soft garden full of metallic tendrils. As he swam through their flowing stalks, he listened to the soft clinks and hums they created. Strong as they were, they made way for his slender form, bowing as if he were royalty. Manny was mesmerized by their song. Though it could not be heard by anyone but themselves, the hymn the forest proclaimed seemed valiant to Manny. Manny envied the stalks that surrounded him. They could not move like he could and would never know the delight of the crystals, but they had found purpose in their shimmering sanctuary. For them to sing, no matter if others listened, was enough. For Manny it was not, so he continued onwards, yearning for more. By now, Manny was growing tired. He had been traveling forever, but did not know where he was, who he was, why he was. The crystals were majestic, the forest poised, but they were so small compared to the vast nothingness around them. The haunting tree that stood before him mirrored the sadness that Manny felt. How could he be part of this world without a purpose? Crystals hummed and trees murmured. They knew their task and performed it with a quiet nobility. But Manny could not tell what his truth was. And he was alone. He dejectedly chased the lights that moved around the tree, hoping their shininess would make him forget his loneliness. But even they could not quell the feeling that maybe the forest and the crystals would be the only friends he would have. Manny was ready to give up. What was the point of his existence if it was to be spent alone in the dark that would eventually consume him? He wanted to share, to play, to explore. But even more, he wanted a friend to do it with. He wished he was the tree. Even it had companions. Then, Manny heard a melody more sweet than he could imagine, a color more vibrant than he could comprehend. At first, he didn't understand. Was it just another sparkling object coming to remind him of his solitude? Another frail distraction from his sadness? Or was it a creature like him, another friend lost in the darkness, yearning for truth? He danced with the creature, and that moment flowered into eternity. He watched her chase away the dark with her simple radiance. Her presence compelled Manny, and he could feel the sadness in his soul begin to fade. She swayed with him in the mist of the night, and Manny felt joy. There was so much to show her, and so much to learn. Soul was her name, Manny knew. The way she glimmered told him of a world filled with light, a land without darkness or fear. They continued circling each other in the twilight until Soul motioned to Manny, and together they journeyed on. As Soul and Manny swam onwards, two more creatures joined them. They greeted Manny and Soul with their own songs. Together they danced. The four of them moved on and found another creature. It too had its own song, and Manny marveled at the serenity of the voices. He watched his friends move and marveled how different yet elegant their bodies were. Two more friends entered the entourage, letting their songs join the flourishing melody. What miracle was this, to simply swim in the song of one's friends? Manny could feel his sense of self slowly receding as he basked in the light of his iridescent friends. As more creatures approached, Manny felt a force he had never felt before, something not even the forest could convey. There wasn't just one more of him, there was a myriad. Manny had never felt so right for being so wrong. He would never be lonely again. The creatures swam through the infinity together. It no longer mattered to Manny that he didn't have the answers. It didn't matter that he was still surrounded by darkness. All that mattered was that he was here now with the rest of his newfound friends, finding pleasure in the mysterious Eden they inhabited. Overjoyed, Manny continued swimming. The chirps of his brethren were more satisfying than any he had known. He wanted to show them the forest, the crystals, the tree. He wanted to explore the unknown with his golden community. Into the distance they would go, triumphantly, marveling at every wonder they found. Each immaculate miracle will be theirs to experience together. Manny led his friends to a sparkling expanse of stars. How glorious these shapes were. As they drifted past him, Manny examined their infinitely precise textures. How Soul must love these objects, he thought, and turned to see the sense of wonder emanating from her being. But Soul was not behind him, and his other friends were not behind her. There was just the floating hexagons, him, and the darkness. Where could they have gone? He was sure they had followed him, but here in the field of stars, they were nowhere to be seen. cold mist washed over him, and he realized now what it meant to be lonely. He had felt the warmth of his friends. To be without it was too much. He had to find them again, no matter what. So he flew on, praying that the direction he traveled in would lead him again to light. Manny could not believe that he had lost his friends. It was too much to bear, too much to remember the love that he felt for them, that he felt for Soul. Around him, small ribbons flocked, and though he found their movement soothing, it could not overcome his heartbreak. The small ribbons of light moved gently around Manny, but he could only imagine them as ghosts of his glimmering friends. As angelic as the ghost songs seemed, it was not enough, and Manny resigned himself to the well of sorrow. Manny was ready for the quiet to come, for this melancholy fantasy to finally end. He could feel the darkness inching around him, winding its icy grip around the deepest parts of his being. As he swam, filled with anguish, Manny fondly remembered the crystals, tendrils, and tree. He thought of Soul and her compassionate movements, and his friends circling around him. Oh, how he missed them, how he wished he had cherished his time in their presence. But the quiet did not come, and Manny hoped for something more. Maybe it was just because he could feel some presence near, or just because he refused to believe that this sorrow was all there was. But Manny decided to keep moving. With every ounce of a remaining light in his broken soul, Manny swam onwards. Within a single moment, all of Manny's sorrow evaporated. The pulsing orb that lay before him was the thing that was missing. It sang, so full of light that even the darkness, which lay unyielding, seemed to dance. Drawn by its sheer holiness, Manny began to approach the deity, examining every inch of its movement. He could not understand the being's size. Every wonder he had found, he had loved, but this was more than wonder. It was more than even reverence. Manny felt for a gentle moment that he had finally found truth. The abyss ran from the light, and Manny towards it. Further and further Manny swam, approaching the loving behemoth. Its song now sang just for him, beckoning him inwards, welcoming him into its loving arms. Its voice told of understanding without bounds, of infinite compassion and warmth that could not be extinguished. So inwards Manny went. The inside of the beast was even more magnificent than its exterior. Finally, Manny knew a world without darkness and stared at the shell that shielded him from the unknown. The song continued and urged Manny towards its center. A shining portal to life lay before him, and he yearned to be one with it, experience the world and truths that lay on the other side. The soul of the creature seemed to embrace Manny. He gazed into the gateway, which told him of a world beyond. It told him of a field, golden waves undulating in a sweet breeze, a blue sky. It told him of the wonders of taste and smell, the unadulterated bliss of youth, and the tender grace of aging. It sang of the overwhelming loss of heartbreak and the sublime surrender of love. He swam closer and closer to the center. He knew this door was meant for him and no other. He would make the journey alone into the next dimension. He marched towards the opening with all the hosts of heaven urging him on. Then, at that moment of ecstatic epiphany, of light infinite, Manny saw movement. It was Soul. She swam to him and he towards her. The being sang in the background of the world beyond as Manny approached Soul. So sweetly she swam, Manny realized in that moment that no golden fields of grass, no immaculate taste could ever compare to the sight of seeing her. The two circled each other as the deity calmly continued its chorus. It knew Manny would never make the passage now that Soul was there. What truth could it promise that was more than friendship? What happiness could it bring that was more than her? They realized this too and chose to turn away from the elegant essence to journey on together. Manny and Soul slowly swam away from the creature. It sang to them as they retreated again into the darkness, lamenting its loss. Like a small fire in the distance, it whispered its goodbyes, leaving Soul and Manny to circle a golden lake. The reflections kept them company as they danced in the darkness. In front of them, glorious fireworks rose above the shimmering surface. Their golden sparkles reminded Manny of the first sparkles he had seen coming from the crystals. He remembered his loneliness, his confusion, as well as each wonder he had discovered. Even the tree he circled was now firmly etched into his memory. Even as the two spiraled together, Manny remembered the golden deity that had invited him towards the light. He thought, heart filled with melancholy, that maybe he was mistaken, that maybe he should have learned what was true and become one with life. But next to him, Soul swam. In the distance, the sparkle shimmered, the water glistened below them, and Manny realized this was enough. Who could be so lucky, who comes to the lake for water and sees the reflection of the moon? And then there's a bunch of thank yous.